Hi, my name is Teja Vamilapalli, and my app is Where I've Been Eating. So the idea behind my app is to let users track and record the restaurants that they are eating at and spending their money at. The idea is to help the users see where they're spending too much money, maybe, or see how often they're going to unhealthy places and maybe fix bad habits. So it can be used in a health aspect or in an economic aspect. It's a pretty straightforward application. It's got maybe three or four view controllers. Not too complicated, not too many different functionalities that may be redundant to the application. And I think some people would definitely find it useful. So this is my class diagram. Obviously, my project starts at the view controller, or my main view controller. This is where I have my map view, I have a couple buttons, I have a navigation controller to go to your table view. Um, I use a restaurant class to save initially searched for restaurants. This saves the title of the restaurant or the name of the restaurant, their coordinates, and their info, or in this case, I have info being their address, full address. When a user decides that they want to go to a certain restaurant, that is when the data for that restaurant is taken from the temporary restaurant class array in this case, and it's moved into core data. When it's moved into core data, it also includes a visits int variable, which is obviously how many times you visited this place. Um, and it splits longitude and latitude up into separate variables. So there's two buttons on the view controller. There's the search button and there's search on the web button. The search button simply obviously searches for your restaurant that's been entered in the text field, and it'll pull them up as annotations on the map view. On the map view, when you click on any certain annotation, it'll pull up the annotation view stating the name of the location and a plus button on the annotation view. When you click this plus button, that's when you're prompted to inform the app whether or not you're going to this restaurant. If you are, then it will pull this from the temporary restaurant array and put it into the core data, which will then update the table view. The second button is search on the web. In this case, it will take you to a second view controller where a Google search of whatever restaurant you've just typed in is Google searched for. On the web view controller, you can obviously navigate through Google. You can click on any links. You can go back and forward in the web view. And then obviously when you're done, you can simply go back to the initial view controller. When you switch to the table view controller, it's pretty straightforward. You can click on any of the cells to go to a detail view. You can obviously go back to the main view, and you can reset your data and clear your table out. And then once you get to the detail view, it pulls up a Yelp API call and brings you information such as price level, ratings, review count, and such. On the detail view, you can also decide that you would like to go to this restaurant that's already in your table again, in which case you click a button and it increments the amount of times you've visited that restaurant. So this is my MVC diagram. For the model, obviously we used core data in this instance, and we save restaurant name, addresses, coordinates in longitude and latitude, and user visits to the core data. And then obviously we also have our temporary restaurant class, which saves the CL location coordinate, the name, and the info. In this case, I've chosen info to be address. Obviously, the model notifies the controller of any data changes, and then using core data, we have data persistence and storage and data manipulation. So the controller is retrieving restaurant data, fetching the nearby restaurants when you're searching for them, and obviously retrieves your current location so the app knows where to search when you're searching for a restaurant. Calls the Yelp API when you go into a detailed view, fetches any of the meaningful data of the restaurants that may be displayed or may be saved. It sends the restaurant name, address, and coordinates between views, and also sends them to core data, obviously. The view obviously reacts to user interactions. It displays the map and lists of search items. It displays any alerts or errors, such as not having entered anything into the text field, or asking if you're sure this is a restaurant you're going to be going to, and such. Um, Obviously, it displays your map view, your table view, your web view, the information about any specific restaurant, and such. User actions that are involved in this are obviously any sort of clicking of control buttons, viewing your table view, or editing table view cells. In this case, you can only remove all of them. Um, Viewing the map view, moving around in the map view, selecting a specific annotation on the map view, navigating through the web view, and similar user actions. Um, Users update the restaurant table when they add a new restaurant, or they remove all the restaurants. When they move to the display controller, the API call displays any information that's asked for, and obviously updating the web view when the user is using it. Any updates that need to be made to core data are when these new restaurants are saved, or location availability is submitted, or restaurant availability is submitted. And then obviously the controller needs to be notified when restaurant information is updated, such as adding a visit or if the list is reset, so that the table view can be cleared by the controller. And also if any locational information has been changed, such as your current location, and maybe your distance from the restaurant. So the capabilities of my app are as such. Obviously, the map view is here. When you search for any restaurant, it'll pull up an annotation pin of the restaurant, and then when clicked on, the pin pulls up the annotation view. There's two buttons, obviously, the search, which searches the map, and then searches the web, which pulls up a separate view controller and pulls up a web page. The web page is going to be a Google search of the restaurant that you are trying to go to. And then obviously up in the left or right hand corner, there's this book icon, which in this case takes you to your table view. Now on the table view, obviously there's the back button, the reset button in the top right hand corner, which will delete all your data if you are trying to just simply restart, or if it's a part of a cycle that you're in. Obviously, if you click on any of these cells, which include the number of times you visited, the name of the restaurant, and the address of the restaurant, if you click on any of these cells, it will take you to the detail view, which in this case will display information such as the name of the restaurant, the price level, rating, number of reviews, and such information. Obviously, on the detail view for each of these restaurants, you can decide that you want to go to the same restaurant again. Simply, I click the I'm going button up in the top right hand corner, and it will increment the number of times you visited this restaurant. Limitations for my app. The search results aren't limited to restaurants yet, so it could be used technically for any sort of store or location. Obviously, if you just choose a random location, it won't save any restaurant details such as the address or the name or such. The data is saved to core data, so um, it would be harder to do some sort of social media aspect, such as sharing and such. If also I don't have a login user password implementation for different people to have their own accounts. Um, so if Firebase had been used, maybe I would have implemented that. Um, I didn't implement a way to delete entries. It seemed counterproductive to the goal of the app if you could just delete having gone somewhere. Obviously, you have to self coach on that if I give the user the option to delete uh, any single entry. And then the last limitation is when going to the web view, rather than finding the website for the specific restaurant that you're searching for, it will just Google search the restaurant that you're looking for. I did this because there are obviously some restaurants, maybe smaller, less known restaurants that might not have their own websites, and that might have put a kink in some of my code. Lessons learned while completing this project is definitely the importance of MVC architecture. Obviously, it gives you a basic layout for your application, and it gives you the ability to separate each aspect of the application. And Swift obviously does that very well for its users. Obviously, another thing was planning ahead, creating a more specific layout on top of the MVC architecture before I started to code my application. If you start to code before doing this, you sometimes find a better way to do something and you have to change more of your code in the first place than if you had just created this more specified layout. And then finally, a little lesson I learned on my own was updating the core data from separate view controllers. I initially attempted to save the data and send it on through the segue to the next view controller. Um, Obviously, I figured out later that I should just access the core data individually from each view controller. And so that was a couple of lessons I learned uh, while completing this project. Suggestions for improvement. For my own project, I'd probably try to implement Firebase rather than core data, and then add the ability to create your own account. Um, that would probably lead on to being able to share between users and such. I'd also probably would add the ability to delete entries. Obviously, I would restrict that in a way that the users aren't always deleting entries just because they want to. And I would probably try to find a way to uh, find a specific website for the restaurant in question rather than just Google searching it. In terms of the class itself, I would like probably more large homework assignments, such as the homework assignment one we had, which I think might have been the only homework assignment we had for this class, rather than the like bunch of smaller labs. I think we only took 2 days with Firebase this class, maybe a little bit more time with Firebase, and also less in-class lab days where we can just work on our lab in class. I know it helps some people when they can be working on it, and whenever they need help, they can just raise their hand and have you help them. But I'd rather have this class time go towards actual lectures, and when I need help, I'd rather come to you either at office hours or if it's a small problem, maybe come to you before or after class. And that's about it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.